What is it you admire most about the former Ayatollah's regime, then?
What a daft question.
Why is that a daft question?
I haven't indicated any admiration for the Ayatollah's regime.
My understanding, and you'll be closer to it than I.
Why would you,
my
as a senior
understanding is, and you'll be closer to ISA, Richard, there were people being killed.
Would you suggest that that's what
Because if you let me answer, my understanding, and you're closer to it than I, is this is a regime that was killing certainly possibly 5,000, possibly 35,000 of its own people, and imprisoning thousands more. It was a regime that I would have thought needed to go. So I'm asking, what possibly could it be that you would...
What is up, everybody? Harry here. This is Nick Ferrari on LBC interviewing Sir Richard Dalton, former British ambassador to Iran, about the UK's response to the Israel-US strikes on Iran and criticism of Keir Starmer's approach. Ferrari pushes hard on why Britain didn't defend its own bases and presses Dalton on his defense of negotiations with the Iranian regime. Dalton's answers are worth watching closely. He's making a specific legal and strategic case, not excusing the regime's record. This is a live, contested foreign policy debate. So I'll try to lay out what's actually said rather than just declare a winner. Get subscribed if that's useful to you. Let's get into it.
Dalton, who served as British ambassador to Iran and joins me now. The continuing, and I have to say, widespread criticism of Sir Keir Starmer in many of the newspapers' editorials this morning. Sir Richard, how fair is that criticism in your view? Good morning.
It's unfair. There was a viable negotiation which the Israelis and the United States aborted. Secondly, we've caught the Americans on the raw at a time when they're having great difficulty domestically with justifying this war. There is no majority in the United States for this war. There was clear indications from leaders of Congress after the briefing a few days before it was launched that there was no reason shown to them why there was a case for compelling reasons for the United States to go to war at this time. They're now soft-pedaling their regime change justification. They are now preparing their people for a long period of war against what the American people had a hope to expect. So when Britain confirms the position taken by France, Germany, and itself and all our other European partners not to participate in the opening strikes, this is a difficult moment for the Americans, and they're lashing out against us, and we should not be unduly impressed by it. We should stick to a course which is in accordance with international law, while at the same time assisting the United States. That is, in brief, what Prime Minister Starmer is doing.
So when it comes to defending UK citizens in the region, we don't even do it ourselves?
We are doing it.
We're not, Sir Richard.
Assisting.
We're allowing US aircraft to do it.
We're actively assisting the United States in trying to destroy the Iranian missiles, which are raining down on.
But we didn't even defend
States.
our own base in Cyprus, Sir Richard. We left that to the Americans as well. I mean, how impotent should the United Kingdom look in your view?
We're not looking impotent in the slightest. That was one small drone
which we didn't defend.
Launched by Hezbollah, and active steps were taken subsequently against the two drones that were directed at Akrotiri, which were successful. So we also have British planes in the skies assisting our partners in the Gulf to defend themselves against Iranian missiles. So the imputation that the UK is being weak is wrong.
When it comes to the Ayatollah and the now dead Ayatollah, what is it that gives you confidence that negotiations could have proceeded and come to fruition?
The clear statements by the Omani foreign minister who was mediating, and my own knowledge of the points which the Iranians were prepared to concede. These negotiations take time. Before they were aborted by Israel and the United States, many people pleaded for the United States to treat them seriously, but plainly they did not.
But what is it you admire most about the former Ayatollah's regime then?
What a daft question.
Why is that a daft question?
I haven't indicated any admiration for the Ayatollah's regime.
My understanding, and you'll be closer to it than I.
Why would you,
my
as a senior
understanding is, and you'll be closer to I, Sir Richard, there were people being killed.
Would you suggest that that's what?
Because if you let me answer, my understanding, and you're closer to it than I, is this is a regime that was killing certainly possibly 5,000, possibly 35,000 of his own people, and imprisoning thousands more. It was a regime that I would have thought needed to go. So I'm asking, what possibly could it be that you admired in that regime?
There are a great many regimes around the world which need to go. But the important issue for Britain's national security is the framework set out after the end of the First World War to minimize the chances of the law of the jungle taking over from international law should be preserved. I'm afraid that our right-wingers, including Jeremy Hunt, are forgetting the lessons of the sacrifices of 20th century generations to try and prevent the law of strong powers overwhelming the rights of nations. And as a relatively weak power, United Kingdom security is dependent long-term on re-establishing the rule of law.
But
now,
lastly,
we didn't go in with the United States on Vietnam or on Somalia.
But I just wonder,
we didn't participate in the war of choice against Yemen. It's nothing extraordinary for us to take a different position from the United States. And the people who are panicking about it are the Americans, because it's their domestic political problem, which they fear we have exacerbated.
Lastly, I wonder, Sir Richard, the rules, as you rightly point out, that were established after the First World War, with players such as President Xi, the late Ayatollah, President Putin on the world stage, are those laws still applicable? Laws that came about more than 100 years ago?
Oh, come on. 100 years ago, in the course of human history, when human nature is what it is...
But obviously we didn't have a Putin, or we didn't have an Ayatollah, or we didn't have a Xi at those times.
We have had lots of them in the past, and it is wrong for us to think that just because we face a Trump and a Putin now, the laws which are there to protect small nations should somehow be jettisoned. The absence of a plan, Starmer was right to point out that. The absence of a legal base, he was right to point out that.
Grateful for your time. Thank you very much, Sir Richard Dalton. You served as British ambassador to Iran.
Watch the moment Ferrari asks Dalton what he admires most about the former Ayatollah's regime, because it's worth examining as a rhetorical technique on its own terms. Dalton never once defended the regime's human rights record. He explicitly calls it a government that needed to go and cites the scale of killings and imprisonments himself, unprompted. The question presupposes an admiration Dalton hadn't expressed, which is a common interview tactic. Frame a follow-up as though it flows from something the guest already said, forcing them to spend their answer correcting the premise rather than making their actual argument. Dalton catches this and calls it a daft question, which is a sharper response than most guests manage in real time. The substantive disagreement underneath the interview is a genuinely difficult one and is worth laying out both sides plainly rather than picking a winner. Dalton's case is that diplomatic negotiations mediated by Oman were making real progress toward limiting Iran's nuclear capability, and that military strikes cut off that process before it could be tested. At a moment when even the United States Congress reportedly hadn't been shown a clear justification for war, Ferrari's implicit challenge is a fair one too. Does declining to join the strikes and not intercepting every threat aimed at British interests amount to Britain looking weak or underdefended at a moment its allies acted decisively? Reasonable people land in different places on both halves of that trade-off. The value of exhausting diplomacy against a regime with a documented record of repression, and the strategic cost of standing apart from close allies during an active conflict. Dalton's broader argument about the post-1945 international legal order is worth stating clearly, because it has a long pedigree in foreign policy circles, not something he invented for this interview. Even powerful states benefit long-term from a rules-based system that constrains stronger nations from acting purely on capability, because smaller states, like the UK, depend on those same rules for protection. Critics of that position argue that rigid adherence to due process can leave dangerous programs unchecked while diplomacy stalls, and that rules built for one era don't always fit a different security environment decades later. Both are legitimate frames for when force is justified versus when patience is warranted. And this interview doesn't resolve that debate. It just puts two people with different priors against each other. Where the video's closing narration goes further than the interview supports is framing Ferrari's questioning as part of a coordinated international political effort. That's a claim about intent and coordination that needs its own evidence. Separate from what's demonstrated in the exchange, appointed adversarial interview styles, the kind LBC hosts across the political spectrum use regularly, not the proof of a broader campaign. Criticizing the substance and tone of specific questions is fair game and well supported by the transcript. Asserting a hidden, coordinated motive behind them is a separate, larger claim that deserves its own scrutiny rather than being folded in as settled fact. That distinction is worth watching for in political commentary generally. There's a real difference between analyzing what someone actually said, which can be checked against the transcript, and asserting a motive behind it, which usually can't be checked at all. The first kind holds up even if you disagree with a conclusion. The second mostly confirms whatever the viewer already suspected. If breakdowns like this are useful to you, get subscribed to Harry Unfiltered, and I'll keep pulling these apart properly, one interview at a time.